Hey, welcome to Southside Online. If you're new here and we haven't had the opportunity to meet in person, my name is Chris. If this is your first time joining us, we are so thankful that you're here. Check out our website, southside.org, and click I'm New to learn more about our church. One of our staff will reach out and to help you take your next step. You know, for a lot of us, we are ready to take the next step, but we aren't sure where to turn. We want to help you feel confident in the right steps to take. That's why we offer different ways to stay connected with us here at Southside. Whether it's here, digitally, or in our in-person worship services, we want you to feel cared for during every season of life. Now, I'm sure you know a person in your life who can use connection as well. Showing up for that person is as easy as sending them a simple text message, letting them know that you're thinking about them. Take the opportunity, even now, to send a text message and invite them to watch the service along with you. Connection can be something we easily lose during the summer. The days can pass quickly and leave us feeling like life is rushing by. Before we know it, school is back in session, and all the while time keeps moving by more quickly. We want to provide a place for you and your family to rest, to know that there's a God who loves you and wants to add purpose and meaning to your life. Making time each week to dedicate just an hour to listening to hopeful worship music and an inspiring message will add meaning to our lives, as well as peace that we all need. We're grateful you chose to spend this time with us, and today is a special day. We get the opportunity to hear from my good friend and lead pastor of the Peachtree City campus, Jason Dixon. He's going to be sharing part 2 of the series, Voices. So, join me live from our Peachtree City location.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We're going to sing some songs together. Feel free to sing along. We're just going to have a little bit of fun this morning. Hey, where did we go? Days when the rain came down in the hollow, playing a new game, laughing and running, hey, skipping and jumping in the misty morning fog with our hearts are thumping, and you, a brown-eyed girl, come on, sing it. You, my brown-eyed girl, come on if you know it. Do you remember when we used to sing la 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 la, la 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 la.
To find someone to call mine. My mama said you can't hurry love. No, you just have to wait. She said love don't come easy. It's a game of give and take. You can't hurry love. No, you just have to wait. You gotta trust, give it time. No matter how long it takes, gotta wait.
Just
Stop. We're at church, bro. We're at church.
My bad.
Next song. Come on, sing this with us. Hey Jude.
Aren't you glad you came to church today? Welcome to those online as well. Hope you enjoyed it. But my name's Chris, and we're so glad that you're here. If you notice, I had a little limp this morning. My sweet wife sometimes forgets to leave the hairdryer on the floor of our bedroom. And so I'm walking around her side of the bed and stepped right on the plug that went straight into my foot. So it was like an outlet. So it's so funny to me because she, forgets to do that, but she does not forget what I said to her 27 years ago when we just got married about all those cruel things that I said. So anyway, it's just kind of funny how that works. But so I'm going to be limping around today. Don't look at your spouse right now, okay? Don't do that. I saw that happening. But hey, that was a lot of fun. That's why we show up here, right? It's because we want to have fun. This is why we do what we do here. It's for you to invite your friends and to have a good time. So we hope that you enjoyed that. But we've got a great service planned today. And if you are new to our church, we've got an area out in the lobby called the studio where you can stop by and get questions answered about our church, and we would love to meet you as well. But again, welcome to those online joining us, and for those of you in the room as well, we've got a great time planned for today. And today, our lead pastor here in Peachtree City, Jason Dixon, is going to be sharing part 2 of this series we started last week called Voices, and it's been great so far. I'm looking forward to hearing from Jason today. But before we do, we're going to sing a few songs together. We've got this amazing band right here, so if you would stand up, wave at someone sitting near you, and then we'll sing together.
There we go. Good morning, Southside. My name is Paige. This is Jordan. This is Arian, and we are so glad that you are here with us this morning. We're going to sing a few songs about how our God is our hope. He is our strength. He gives us life. So we're going to rejoice in that together and sing this out. We're going to sing from beginning to the end. From beginning to the end, all my life is in your hands. This whole world may hold me down, but it can never drown you out. I'm not merely flesh and bone. I was made for something more. But Christ who lives within me, Christ who lives within me. Come on, sing it out from beginning. From beginning to the end, you deserve the glory. You deserve the glory. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me. Christ who lives within me. From beginning to the end, you deserve the glory. You deserve the glory. You are God. You're the great I am. Breath of life, I breathe you in. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. You are strong in my brokenness, sovereign over every step. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. You are God. You're the great I am. Breath of life, I breathe you in. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. You are strong in my brokenness, sovereign over every step. Even in the fire, I'm alive in you. Yeah. I'm alive in you. I am, yes I am. I'm alive in
Where was the darkness when hope seemed lost? Where was despair when my God split the shores? And where was defeat when the Lord took a breath? Where he stood in power by the grave he had left. Nowhere, nowhere, and nowhere is a fear when my King resurrects. Nowhere, nowhere, and nowhere was the doubt when my King conquered death. Yes, you were. Sing it with me. Where was the sorrow when dry bones arose? Where was the pain when the sick touched the road? And where was disgrace when the King laid to rest? The stronghold of sin with the grace he possessed. Nowhere, nowhere, nowhere is the fear when my King resurrects. Nowhere, nowhere, and nowhere was the doubt when my King conquered death. Nowhere, come on, sing it. Nowhere, and nowhere is the fear when my King resurrects. Nowhere, nowhere, and nowhere was the doubt when my King conquered death. Come on, sing this with me. I see joy rising, I hear hope calling, I see fear hiding, I hear chains falling, I see walls shaking, I hear doubt running. My God's on his way, yes he is. Come, we're gonna sing that again. I see joy rising, I hear hope calling, I see fear hiding, I hear chains falling, Now here in his presence, my shame disappears. Now here, oh, I stand undefeated. Jesus is here. Now here, in his presence, my shame disappears. Now here, oh, I stand undefeated when Jesus is near. I see joy rising, I hear hope calling, I see fear hiding, I see chains falling, I see walls shaking, I hear doubt running. My God's on his way, yes he is coming. I see joy rising, I see hope calling, I see fear hiding, I hear chains falling, I see walls shaking, I hear doubt running. My God's on his way, yes he is coming.
We're gonna sing this throwback. It's an oldie but a goodie. Sing along if you remember. Savior, I come, quiet my soul. Redemption's hill, where your blood was spilled for my ransom, yeah. Oh, and everything I once held dear, I count it all as loss. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. Tempted and tried, human. The Word became flesh, bore my sin and death. Now you're risen, yeah. Oh, and everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross.
You know, one of the things we just sang was being led to the heart of Jesus. And one thing I know is that's on his heart is our kids. And if you're a parent, you know it can be difficult to parent. And Jenny and I always thought that it would just get easier as time went on. And it's, you know, a whole lot easier than when they're little to parent adults. And it's got its different kind of challenges, right? And so if you're a parent out there, we recognize the fact that parenting is hard. It's difficult, but we want to help. So we're going to offer what we call a parent summit. And it's for parents, grandparents, anyone that wants to be a parent to help navigate through this wild ride that we're on. And so to give you a little bit more information about it, turn your attention to the screen.
Promo, take 2.
Does it ever feel like parenting is more complicated than it should be?
Could you use some wisdom in your season of parenting?
How about a few ideas for connecting as a family?
Join us for this year's online parent summit, where we'll talk about intentional parenting.
We all know parenting in a tech world brings its share of challenges.
So we'll talk about what you need to know and do when it comes to navigating technology with your child.
I'll share ways to build a strong relationship with your kid or teenager when difficult emotions leave you feeling discouraged or overwhelmed.
We'll share practical advice for connecting with the kids you love, as well as tips for maintaining consistency as a parent.
Here's the good news for all of us.
Parenting doesn't require perfection.
But it does need intention. So we'd love to help you develop a plan.
Join us for this year's parent summit.
You're doing great.
Thank you.
There you go. Lady at the end there is Sissy Golf. If you've ever heard of Bob Golf, that's his daughter. And she's written several books, but her latest one is on raising teenage daughters. And so anybody out there have a teenage daughter? Anyone? Right here? I want to give you a copy of her book, okay? Because I saw your hand first. So Brittany's going to help me out here. Thanks, Brittany. So you get a copy of that book. We would love for you to sign up and register for this conference. It's going to be on demand. It's also a great opportunity for you to invite your friends that you know that are parents and maybe even aren't believers, but they want to get parenting right. And so we have a QR code that we're going to put up on the screen. And if you're like me and struggle with technology, what you do with this QR code is you just hover your camera up to the screen, okay? So you don't take a picture of it. You just hover your camera up there and then you push the button when it comes up for the link for you to register. But we would love for you to take advantage of this opportunity to get better at parenting. And we hope that this helps. Today, again, we're going to be hearing from my good friend, our lead pastor here, Jason Dixon, who's got a great message for us. And so before we hear from him, let's pray together. God, thank you for your heart for us, and that your heart as our Heavenly Father is to parent us and to be there for us. And Lord, I pray for that person here today that maybe didn't have great parents, maybe didn't have a great father figure in their lives. And Lord, I pray that you would minister to them. And as we're talking about this whole idea of parenting, what that looks like, God, I pray that you would speak to them. And Lord, no matter where we enter in today in this room, I know that there's no accident that person is here to hear from you. And so would you speak through Jason this morning, God, not just what we hear, but we would be challenged to do what we hear and to act on it, so that we can draw closer to your heart. And so whether we're watching online or in the room, God, I pray that you would minister to each and every one of us. And we pray all this in Jesus' powerful name. Amen.
Good to see everybody here today. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us, and everyone joining us online. Wherever you're joining us from, thank you for being with us here today. You know, one thing that I found out early on in life is that I love music. Does anybody love music? Anybody like music? So when I was about, now this is a little young to be introduced to this, but it was great. When I was about 12 years old, I got introduced to this guy named Andrea Bocelli. Anybody know who Andrea Bocelli is? Yeah, that's what 12-year-olds listen to, right? But no, it was a good friend of mine, and his parents, Italian heritage, and so loved all the good food. But his mom would just blast just wonderful music in the house always. You know, I'm 12 years old, and I'm hearing this guy, and I remember we're on a trip to Six Flags, and I'm hearing this guy, and I'm like, Miss Susan, who is this? Who is this guy? And she goes, oh, his name's Andrea Bocelli, one of the most beautiful voices in the world, beautiful tenor. He's actually blind, but I mean, just incredible things. And so at 12, I was just fascinated with this guy, Andrea Bocelli. And so in 1999, Andrea was actually going to sing at the Grammys with Celine Dion, and they were going to sing the song The Prayer. And it's, I mean, beautiful song. If you know that song, it's just an amazing song. But Andrea is a very busy man, right? And so he actually could not make it to the rehearsal the night before the Grammys. Now, he's fine. Obviously, he's going to, do amazing at the song. Everything's going to be awesome. But it's the Grammys, right? So we need to have some sort of rehearsal. So Celine Dion's sitting there, and she needs someone to fill in. And so there's actually a manager and a producer there of this young kid, really young kid, and this kid's name happens to be Josh Groban. And so Josh Groban, he has an amazing voice. No one knows who he is. And so his manager and his producer are sitting there, and they're like, we got to get him here. Get Josh on the phone, and he needs to come now. And so they call Josh and like, hey, Josh, hope you're doing well. I need you to come do something for me. Do you know Andrea Bocelli? And he's obviously like, yes. He can't make it, so I need you to stand beside Celine Dion, Canadian superstar, right? And I need you to sing a song with her. No, not My Heart Will Go On Titanic, but I need you to sing a song with her called The Prayer. And he knows the song. He goes, and Josh is freaking out. Like, what do I do? My opportunity is literally a cold call to sing a song that I haven't prepared for in front of probably the most powerful people in Hollywood at the Grammys. This is what I'm supposed to do? Cool, I'll be there. And so Josh goes, he sings, and everyone at the rehearsal is like, who is this kid? Like, who is this? Celine Dion was blown away. They interviewed her later, and she's like, he was so nervous. He was such a nervous wreck. And then he opened his mouth, and it was the most beautiful voice that I had ever heard. So after that, Rosie O'Donnell was actually hosting the Grammys that year, so he ended up going on her show. And then later, maybe you know this about Josh, he ended up on the Ally McBeal show. Did anybody ever watch the Ally McBeal show? There you go. You know what I'm saying? If you're a teenager, you have no clue what I'm talking about. But he was on the Ally McBeal show, and then his career just took off. And so Josh Groban is one of the best vocalists of all time. But what was amazing was he took advantage of an opportunity. I had an opportunity very similar to that when I was a freshman in high school. I had to change positions so I could start. So, Josh and I, we're similar. Everybody has their cross to bear. Mine was high school baseball, and his was Grammy rehearsals, but it's fine. It's all the same. But what it was that an opportunity presented itself, and Josh took advantage of it. I'm sure you have those instances in your life where you have an opportunity and you got to take advantage. And honestly, when I say that, that kind of maybe brings up memories for us because we always remember that. Maybe it was a parent or a teacher or a coach or a grandparent or a friend or like a mentor, and they said this to us all the time: take advantage of every opportunity. This is good advice. There's nothing wrong with this advice. This advice actually gets you to places where maybe you want to be in your life, right? It gets you to places that you've dreamed of. It may be small steps, a lot of little opportunities that get you to this one. It may be a giant opportunity out of nowhere that you just got to take advantage of. Because what we want to make sure is when it comes to opportunities, we never want to waste them. We never want to waste opportunities. And there's a reason because of that. There's a reason that we don't want to waste opportunities, because when we think of opportunities presenting themselves, this is how we look at opportunities. So a seized opportunity equals success. Think about that in your life, right? Think about all of the opportunities that you've had in your life and you took advantage and you're successful for them, whatever those opportunities are. Or wasted opportunities equal regret. Because what do opportunities give us a lot of times? More money, right? More notoriety, more power, more. And then when we look back on something and we see that maybe we sacrificed an opportunity, we don't get that more. And so we live in a place of regret. It's a hard place to sit because we want to take advantage of every opportunity coming our way. We want to say yes. We want to say yes, and we want to say yes. because you never know if that next yes puts you at the place that you've always dreamed of. But there's a problem. There's a problem because there is a cost to every yes. There's a cost to every yes in your life because too many yeses begin to push some stuff down. There's a cost to every yes. And you might know what I'm thinking about when I'm saying this, and it's a simple phrase. It's this phrase right here. It's opportunity cost. We all have opportunity costs. Not just financial. A lot of us, maybe if you're in the financial sector, maybe this, you know exactly what I'm talking about here, but it doesn't have to just be financial. It can be relational. It could be your standing in the community. There's so many different places that this can go. All opportunities have a cost. You say yes to this, and you're saying no to this, or a lot of thises over here. Because one opportunity can sacrifice a bunch of opportunities in your life. But you have to figure those out. What are the opportunity costs? What am I willing to sacrifice for this opportunity? But the problem is this: all costs of those opportunities are not the same. All costs of your opportunities are not the same. I remember when my first ministry job, I just graduated college, got engaged recently before that, and then got married. But during that first year of work in campus ministry, it was also my first year of marriage, so I jumped to marriage. And so I remember, now, however many of you went to college, you understand what a college life is about. So you understand what that's about, and I was the person, a married guy, trying to hang out with these people, trying to steer them in some sort of correct direction, right? And so that means I was not up, just early living my life and then going to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. No. We're doing stuff. Anybody go to University of Georgia? Is anybody there? Anybody familiar with the Coliseum there? You know the little ramps that walk up? It's like a little arch that goes over the Coliseum. If you'll notice, there are these big wrought iron like fences around the top of it. Why? Because we as students would like to climb up on top of that and go on top of the Coliseum. What a wonderful thing to do. And so those are the kind of things that I would do with these college students, because being in ministry, you just want them to love God. And so whatever you got to do, get arrested, any of that kind of stuff is a great thing to do to get people to know Jesus. And so you'd have these freshmen that were coming in like, hey, we haven't been on top of the Coliseum yet. I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to do that. You got to come. And like, okay, I'll go. And then you walk up there and you try to get in on the stadium, try to get on the field at Sanford Stadium. So many different things that you have to do. And I was doing this, and I was doing so much because I wanted to create the relationship with all of these students. Campus ministry is what led me to Jesus. And so I wanted them to experience the same thing. Also, I wanted my boss to think, this guy's good. He's willing to do whatever it takes. He's doing this small group and that small group and this mission trip and that retreat and just saying yes and yes and yes. And I remember one night I came home and we had our services on Wednesday night. And so, came home late because after the service, college kids, that's when they eat dinner. It's about 11 o'clock. And so we go to Waffle House, we eat dinner, and I come in, and my wife, Shaylin, she had kind of fallen asleep on the couch, and I walked in, and she woke up. And how was tonight? I was like, oh, it's great service. I got to do this and hang out with you and all this kind of stuff. I said, how are you? How are you doing? Now, granted, we've been married for not very long at all. And she goes, well, she said a phrase that changed my life forever. And this is what she said. Should I miss my husband? And I was like, whew, not even a year in, really crushing the game, Jason. Yeah. And this coming out of my wife's mouth changed my life forever. Because I first get defensive because obviously you got to get defensive when somebody calls you out on something. And because I'm thinking to myself, but I'm doing it for a good reason, right? I'm doing it for a good reason. But then you start to look at your life more and more, and you start to see what I value so much. And this is what I recognize. This is what I recognize when it said me saying yes. It's saying yes to too many ministry opportunities had a cost for me. I had an opportunity cost. You know what my opportunity cost was? My relationship with Shaylin. To the person that I said I was going to give my life to. Outside of my relationship with God, this was the person that I said I would give everything to, and she already misses me. Now, I looked at it like this, though. This is what I would say to myself. Why would I not say yes to an opportunity that is the best? Because you know how you can flip this? I mean, just doing God's work, right? That's what people in church do when they're too busy. I'm doing God's work. It's like, you need to go take a nap. But this is what I would say to myself, to an opportunity that's the best. Why would I not say yes to this? And then we do this in life. Get outside of ministry. We do this in life all of the time. People that we love and we value the most, things that we love and value the most, when they start getting pushed to the side, we start saying this, well, I'm doing this for you, right? I want you to have a better life. Your spouse, your kids, I want you to have a better life. Me, I want to make sure that I take advantage of every opportunity. I need to say yes to everything so that I'll be fine 20, 30, 40 years from now. It is true. It is true, and it actually makes sense. It makes sense in our culture to say yes to these things. But remember, whatever you say yes to, there's a no in its wake. And a lot of times that no can be what's most valuable to you. What if your opportunity cost you what you value most? What if saying yes causes you to lose sight of your priorities? What if what you value is not lining up and your yeses begin to push them to side? That's exactly where we find a guy named Nehemiah in Scripture. Now, maybe some of you have heard of Nehemiah before, but Nehemiah was a Jewish man, but he was born into exile. See, in 586 BC, the Babylonians basically overtook Jerusalem, crushed, destroyed everything was gone. So Nehemiah was born into exile, and he was actually born into exile, and the guy that was the ruler at the time, his name was King Artaxerxes. And Nehemiah actually had a very, very interesting place in the court of the king. A Jewish man, an exile. He's not even a part of this culture. He had a very interesting place. A foreigner had a place in the court of the king. And his place was a very important place. It was a cupbearer. And so many of you have heard of a cupbearer before. If you haven't, basically, long time ago, kings were always terrified that someone was trying to kill them, right? So eventually a king was like, I need to put out a job description, and we need to find a person for this, and we're going to call them our cupbearer. And so, the first king probably went up to a person and was like, hey, do you like wine? And that person was like, yeah, I love wine. Okay, cool. What I want you to do is I want you to drink wine every day for the rest of your life, and I want you to drink it right before me. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I shouldn't drink before you. You're the king. No. I want you to drink it because if there's poison in there, I'll watch you die, and then I don't. And the guy's like, I don't like wine that much, right? That's just kind of how that job search went. But they would put somebody in that place. So the cupbearer was such an important position because you had to trust, as a king, the ruler of all of this, you had to trust this person with everything that you have. Do they really drink that? Did they do, all of these things, taste the food, all of these things that you're doing. And so Nehemiah had a very, very important position in the king's court. Yeah, it's actually a really good, terrifying job. So Nehemiah was in a very, very interesting place. And that's where we jump in when we look at the book of Nehemiah. And in chapter 1, we jump right in, and something's going on, and someone comes to Nehemiah, someone that Nehemiah knows, is very familiar with. And so this is where we start. In Nehemiah chapter 1, it says, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, Hanai, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile and also about Jerusalem. So his brother basically comes to him. One of his brothers, Hanai, comes to him, and they're having a conversation. They're talking about some things. And then they said something to Nehemiah that would change the course of Nehemiah's life forever. This is what they said to Nehemiah. Those who survived the exile are back in the province, are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. So they're coming to this man, to their brother, who's in an amazing position. They're probably proud of him. They're like, we should talk to him. We could get whatever we want. He's a cupbearer, and they're thinking all these things. But what they brought to him was, listen, your homeland, where you're from, your heritage, it's done. It's burned down. And to give a little bit more context of what was going on then, you had the fall of Jerusalem in 586 BC to the Babylonians, and then just so many other things happened after this. Then you had the fall of Babylon to Cyrus, the king of Persia, and then you have reigns of Darius the Mede, and then Xerxes, and then you get all the way to the guy who's in charge now, Artaxerxes, and that's where Nehemiah comes into the story. And so Nehemiah is in this story, and it is such a terrible, terrible place for his people. I mean, the walls have been destroyed, and his people have just been taken over, and they're in exile. People have tried to rebuild the wall over and over and over again, and it's just too difficult. It's too difficult. They couldn't do it, so they would just give up. Because when you're rebuilding a wall, that means you don't have a wall to protect you, right? And so if somebody's watching you try to rebuild a wall, they're going to come after you. They don't want you to build that wall. They want to make sure you're always defenseless, right? That's how it worked back then. And so people would give up. And so the Jewish people are in such a tough spot, and it's hard. It's so hard. And finally his brothers came to him and said, listen, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. What can you do about it? And so then Nehemiah pivots and he focuses. And this is what he does. In verse 4, he says, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. And so when you look at these things, Nehemiah took this very seriously. For some days. This wasn't just a, hey, let's figure it out real quick. He took time and he thought about this. And then it said, he wanted to make sure that this was the right thing to do. What was the right thing to do? And so he wept and he cried for his people. He loved them so much. He fasted. He emptied himself of everything so he could focus on what God has for him. And then he prayed to God. And Nehemiah prays this beautiful prayer to God. But what was Nehemiah really doing here? What was he really, really doing here? He was doing this right here. He was weighing the cost. He was weighing the cost. And why was he weighing the cost? Because the cost was great. The cost was great. I had already told you the position that Nehemiah held, but when we're reading this, you don't know that yet, because then Nehemiah says something, and it just turns everything upside down, and it builds tension in his story. Nehemiah has this huge prayer to God, just crying out to God. God, my people are just in ruin, and the city's in ruin, and the walls and the gates are burned, and they're torn down, and I'm here living a lavish life in the presence of the king, and I have influence with the king. All of these things are going on. And this is how Nehemiah ends it. Simply, he says, I was cupbearer to the king. That's why he had to weigh the cost. This is why it was a tough decision. What did we say earlier? Opportunity cost? That's exactly what he had, because the place he was in was a place that no one would ever leave. It was the job of all jobs. You were in the presence of the king. And so Nehemiah then shifts his focus, and he knows what he wants to do. He understands what he values the most, and he has to push it to a priority in his life. And so in chapter 2, he goes and he talks to the king. And in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. He was doing his job, right? I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. Now, this is an interesting thing for the king to say, that he says, hey, why does your face look so sad? And why are you, when you're not ill? Like, what's going on? And what this means is that the king focuses on Nehemiah. He knows Nehemiah. He knows he doesn't normally look like this. So he's actually invested in Nehemiah's life. He actually really cares about this man. He's invested in Nehemiah's life. And so, Nehemiah then says something, and this actually is a little bit risky for Nehemiah to say. He goes, I was very much afraid. I was very much afraid. Think about that. The person that you don't want to be afraid in front of is the person who can do something about it and harm you at the snap of his fingers. I was very afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Let me get that out of the way. Hey, may you live forever, right? I'm afraid. You're awesome. And that's exactly what Nehemiah said. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire? The king said to me, what is it that you want? What is it that you want? And then he said this. Then I prayed to the God of heaven, because I know what I'm about to say is risky. If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. You see, again, this is a risky thing for Nehemiah to do because of the position that he's in. His opportunity costs are greater than anything we can ever even imagine. His opportunity costs actually put him in a dangerous place, maybe a place that actually could leave him dead. But he understood what was most important to him. But he was given a place where he had access to someone of power that can make things happen. You see, the cupbearer, what Nehemiah was, he had different levels of a relationship with the king. And the things that he had with the king were these things right here. The first is this influence. You see, Nehemiah had influence with the king. The king had his ear open to Nehemiah. The king was so focused and paid so much attention to Nehemiah that when Nehemiah just looked sad, it made the king upset and want to talk to him. It made the king want to find out what was going on in his life. So he had influence with his life. But why did he have influence with King Artaxerxes? It's because of this. Artaxerxes trusted him. He trusted him every single day of his life. And he didn't just trust in him. He trusted him with his life. That's a different level of trust, right? That's a whole different level of trust. But why did he trust him? Because Nehemiah was always in his presence. Being present creates trust, and trust grants you influence. The king looks at Nehemiah, and the king says, okay, go rebuild the walls and the gates of your city. And so then Nehemiah leaves, and this is a whole process. Like I had told you before, people had tried to rebuild this wall so many different times and just given up. So when they're rebuilding this wall, there's other little people groups around, and they're finding out the Jews are trying to rebuild the wall. They're trying to create a new fortress, and then they're going to try to come and take us over. So people started talking, and they're going to come after them, and they're going to destroy them, and they're going to stop the rebuilding of this wall. But you couldn't stop it. And in 52 days, the wall and the gates were completely rebuilt. And what is amazing about this is that Nehemiah had to weigh the cost. And what he looked at was his values and his priorities. Values and priorities. Because what opportunities do? Opportunities present you with this tension, with this struggle. You have to say, this is what I value. Am I willing to make it a priority? This is what I value. Am I willing to make it a priority? And that's what Nehemiah did. And Nehemiah said, I'm not putting my value, my people, as a priority if I stay here with the king while my city is being torn down. And he didn't. He took a chance. He leveraged what God had given him. And he asked the question, can I leave? And the king granted it. And his city was rebuilt. And this is what's amazing, because so many people, again, like I had said before, tried to come after them when they were rebuilding the wall. And then finally, 52 days later, The wall was rebuilt. And then we see in chapter 6 something very interesting happens in verse 16. It says, when all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. You see, they knew that what happened here was impossible. You can't just do this because you're just good at your job. No, this is impossible. You had to have the help of someone bigger than you, someone bigger than me, someone bigger than all of us. This is God. And so because of that, we're going to back away. We're going to back away. Nehemiah weighed his cost. Nehemiah looked at his values and he asked himself, are my values being placed as a priority in my life? And he made sure that happened. And now you may be in this kind of position in your life. You may be in a position where, you're being faced with this battle, that you have an opportunity that's been presented to you, or maybe this has happened to you. Maybe it's not even right now, but maybe it has happened to you, where you have opportunities that are presented to you and your values are right here and they're supposed to be a priority. But maybe they're not feeling that way because you're taking advantage of opportunities and they're clashing. They're clashing. They're clashing because their opportunity cost. Every yes we say in our life costs us something. Are all of them bad? No. Are all of them bad? No, not at all. We know our opportunity cost. You say yes on the altar to your spouse, and you're saying no to a lot of other people. It's a good opportunity cost. I was just out in Yosemite and we drove for 4 hours in a car with 2 children in the back. I said yes to that drive, so my opportunity cost was silence. There was no silence. There's no patience. Going around mountains, almost throwing up. It was great for my kids, but there's an opportunity cost to everything we do. You've been there before. But opportunity cost, you can't look at them without looking at this right here. Values versus priorities. Is what you value in life being prioritized? When you look at the opportunities that you're taking advantage of, does it reflect the values in your life? Are those still being prioritized over your opportunities? Like I told the story earlier with Shayla, and it wasn't. It wasn't. What I was doing wasn't bad. It just wasn't what's best. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't what's best. But the problem is, opportunities can put this filter over our eyes, and we can begin to look past our values and make other things a priority. We begin to sacrifice things in our life. And there's another way to put it. It's this right here. When we say yes, it can sacrifice what's best. When we say yes, it can sacrifice what's best. There are opportunity costs. Does it always sacrifice what's best in your life? Does it always sacrifice what you value the most? No, a lot of times it actually helps those things and elevates those things in your life. But what I want us to do today is when we leave here, I want us to look at opportunity costs a little bit differently. I want us to look at opportunities a little bit differently. This is how I want you to think about it. The opportunity is lost. You have an opportunity that's in front of you, and you think about these things, and you weigh it, and you have to look at your values, and you have to look at your priorities. And so the opportunity, it's just, no, I can't. Because if what I value is not prioritized, then it's not valuable anymore. So the opportunity is lost, but it's worth it. There are opportunities in your life that are worth not taking advantage of. Is this easy? No. No. It could cost you a promotion. It could cost you that amazing vacation that you wanted. It could cost you a friend. It could cost you a lot of things. But the only way in our life that we can ever figure out what to take advantage of, what opportunity to lean into, is we have to figure out what we value. There's another way to put that. It's just right here. You have to evaluate what you value before you evaluate an opportunity. You have to evaluate what you value before you evaluate an opportunity. There's even another way to say this, is you can't evaluate an opportunity if you don't know what you value. Many of us in here might not even know what we value. You know who knows that? The people closest to you. Because what you value always is a priority. What you think you value might get left behind. We want to be better in life. We want to take advantage of opportunities given to us. But a lot of times, the opportunity cost is way too great. Because when we say yes, it can sacrifice what's best. When we say yes, it can sacrifice what's best. And there might be some of you watching online, there might be some of you in the room right now that you know what? You don't consider yourself a follower of Jesus, and that's not where you are right now, but maybe you're a little bit curious. This applies to everyone. We all have values in our life. We all prioritize things in life, and we all will be given opportunities in life. But when it comes to those opportunities, we need to know this, that we want our priorities to feel like a priority. We want our priorities to feel like a priority. When we look back at everything that we take advantage of, is it lining up with our values? Are our values staying valuable? Or are our values not being treated as priorities? Our values are worth the cost of our opportunities. Always. Our values are always worth the cost of our opportunities, because a lot of times what happens is we don't treat them that way. We don't treat them that way. And eventually what happens in our life is what's valued is not a priority. And then we look back weeks later, months later, years later, and we're like, I said yes to something I should have said no to. And now what I value the most is sacrificed. Sacrificed. What you value must feel valuable. For you to look back at the end of your life, what you value must feel valuable. I was just recently watching a show, and a man is sitting with his dad, and his dad's about to pass away. And it's just this beautiful picture of a man who's, in his 40s, late 30s or 40s, and he's sitting with his dad. And it's literally his dad's last moments, and he knows it, and he's spending time with his dad. And the conversation that they're having, what you begin to see is a dad who knows what he actually valued didn't feel valuable for most of his life. Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever been on the receiving end? Somebody tells you you're valuable, but you don't feel valuable. It's hard. We don't want to be in that place. When we leave here today, we ask ourselves that question. Does what I value feel valuable? Are my opportunities, are we putting them ahead of everything else in our life? A lot of times we are. But we want to make sure that who and what we value most in our life always feels valuable in every opportunity that we take. It's about that person or that thing that they feel valuable. They feel prioritized. And we got to leave here today and tomorrow and next week and the day after. And we got to make sure those people, those relationships in our life feel valued. They feel valuable because they are. You're valued. You're valuable. You want to make sure everybody else feels the same way in the face of the opportunities that are presented to you. Sometimes a no is better than a yes. Let's pray. God, we love you and we thank you that you have given us so many amazing opportunities to have so many incredible blessings in our lives. But God, I pray that you would give us the wisdom to choose well, that we would put our values as a priority in our life. It makes sense, but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. And I pray that we would move forward today from here, and everything that we value in our life would always be a priority in our life. Thank you for putting us as a priority. You said you valued us, and you do because you gave us your son. And I pray that we would always remember that you always keep us as a priority in your eyes, in your heart, in your mind. We love you, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are in part 3, the last part of this series next week. Please, please, please don't miss it. It's going to be absolutely amazing. But hey, we're just grateful that you came to hang out with us today on a summer Sunday here in June. But hey, on your way out, we're going to have some drinks under the porticos, some nice cold drinks, maybe some throwback drinks that you haven't had in a while. So head out there, get a good cold drink, and we'll see you back here next week. See ya. Thanks. Thank you.